Hi everyone, it's Suey. Today I'm a little nervous because I'm mixing up a couple of my passions, which I tend to want to avoid, even though I also would love to figure out how to mix them up, but it makes me a little nervous. I was just saying somewhere the other day that I've found it hard to talk K-pop with book people and to talk books with K-pop people. But today I am going to do that. And in fact, I might even cross-post and put this video up on the K-pop channel along with the BookTube channel. So this is going to be a review of this book, Beyond the Story, by BTS and Byung-Suk Kang, who helped them write this book. A 10-year record of BTS. Yes, so I mentioned that I got this book a while back, so today I'm going to talk a little more in detail about it since I finished it yesterday. It's going to mix, like I said, my reading self and my K-pop self. So hopefully that's okay. Let me start out by telling you a little teeny bit of my background with BTS. I found K-pop in January of 2016, and within the week or two of finding K-pop, somebody suggested we watch Dope by BTS. So we did, and my daughter and I. And I remember thinking, that's okay. But I was very into my gateway group, which was Super Junior, and I didn't really care about any other groups at the time. A couple months later in March, I'm hearing more and more about BTS, together with my sister and my daughter, who we were all in this, all of a sudden, this crazy K-pop thing, all of a sudden all together. We checked out BTS a little more, and at that time I was like, okay, they are different. They are for sure different. I wasn't too sure about them yet until at the beginning of May when they dropped the song Fire. And then I was like, okay, I am here for these guys. And so I jumped on the wagon and I rode that crazy wave for a couple of years. On our K-pop channel, we have so much BTS content. We reacted to everything. We completely were immersed into the whole phenomenon when they were dropping their Wings album, which was like September, October of 2016. We were part of that craziness when they started doing stuff in the US in 2017 when they did the BBMA Awards and the AMA Awards. We have reactions to those things on our channel. We did get tickets and see them at when they did the Wings tour in April of 2017. They were our second K-pop concert, but the first time we bought tickets for K-pop, which we have all documented on our K-pop channel. So yeah, we were very, very, very into BTS during, the 2016, 17, and 18. 2019 rolled around and their fandom became so huge and so crazy that I took a step back a little bit. They were too intense for me, and also I was falling in love with lots of other K-pop groups, and the BTS fandom army tends to not like it if you like anyone else besides BTS. At least a big huge segment of them do. The crazy fans is what I call them. And so I was like, I am not so sure about this anymore, and I was very much involved in falling in love with other groups at the time, so I kind of took a step back. So their stuff that they did in 2019 and 20, I wasn't as much involved in. So it's interesting as I'm reading this book, which chronicles the journey of BTS from their debut day, which was June 2013, through kind of towards the end of 2022. It does not mention at all, spoiler alert, I kind of hoped it would, it does not mention at all their decision to not do any group promotions right now and just do solo stuff, and they're starting to do their military service, and so for a while they won't be doing any group things, and I thought maybe they would address that decision, and that probably, I'm guessing it was a little bit traumatic for them to decide to do that, but they didn't talk about that, so they ended it kind of right before that decision was made. It starts out when they're all joining each other at the dorms, coming together, not necessarily to be a group yet, but they're trainees, and they are all coming together to stay at the dorms, and it talks about all their individual journeys to get to the dorms, and that's kind of where it starts. And they haven't been told that they're debuting yet, and so there's several months where they're just helping each other out, teaching each other how to rap, how to dance, getting to know each other, learning how to be on their own because they were very young, and wondering if they will debut. And so it was whittled down to the 7 of them, and then that they were told that they would become a boy group called BTS, which stands for Bangtan Soyeondan, if I said that right. Bulletproof Boy Scouts in Korean. And so so then it follows their journey from there, and how they struggled a lot in the first couple of years. People kind of looked down on them because they were too hip-hoppy, and maybe they were a little bit too edgy. I remember thinking when I first found them that that's what they were, they were trying a little bit too hard to be edgy, which turned me off from them a little bit. That is until I learned them better, and then I realized that was not how it was at all. Anyway, they struggled in the beginning because they couldn't connect with other groups. Everybody kind of looked at them weirdly. They were from a small company, so everybody thought they were just kind of not for real, didn't take them seriously, basically. That's basically what it was. And people said some mean things to them. And so all that's talked about in here. Well, one of my favorite things is when they talked about their first music show appearance. And in Korea, there's music shows almost every day of the week. And when you're promoting your songs and your album, you go and appear on these music shows live. It's broadcast live on the TV. And fans come and, show up to cheer on their groups. We were able to go to one of these music shows when we were in Korea in 2019, and it's really, really fun. And there's a different group of fans for every group. And so when BTS appeared on their first show, Jimin talks about how he remembers seeing a little teeny tiny row of fans that came for them. And he thinks about those fans all the time, still to this day. Those first few people, he said there was maybe a dozen people that showed up for them for their first music show performance. And I think about those fans and I'm like, wow, what do they think of now? Now that they've seen what's happening, it must be crazy to have been one of those first original fans that went to their very first music show. They struggled with those first few albums, and then it was like in 2015, a couple of years later, that they dropped their albums that had I Need You and Run and Butterfly. They started getting some attention. And then they started winning some awards at those music shows. And then they started winning some awards at the year-end music shows. And everybody was like, what the heck? These guys they haven't gone away, and they really are that great. And then they started getting more and more fans. And then it started just kind of going crazy from there. That's about the time I joined in with things. So I never did see the struggling part, right? That people talk about all the time. So then they started becoming popular and famous. They started getting attention here in the United States with those awards, the BBMAs and the AMAs, and they were appearing on all the talk shows, and so they were starting getting a lot of attention. I remember as a fan being a little bit worried about that, and like, what would it do to them as artists, and would they survive the craziness? Well, as it turns out, they became huge, right? But then they struggled again. This is the part that we as fans didn't really know what was going on until later. I think it was in the early 2019 where Jin mentioned during a speech at an award show that they almost broke up, and we were all like, what the heck are you talking about? You guys are like huge now and everything's going great. And I guess like 2018, end of 17 and 18, they really, really struggled. And so all of that is talked about in here. So that was interesting to learn about. And I guess it's hard for me to understand because they wanted it so bad. They worked so hard to be successful, whatever that means, like getting the numbers basically, and winning the awards, and having all these fans and getting known around the world. They wanted that so bad, and then when they got it, they weren't happy. They struggled because of the pressure because of how hard they were working. They worked too hard. They were barely functioning. They lost themselves in the whole process. And they really didn't know if they could get through it. And so that was hard to read about. And I felt so bad. I was like, why can't they be happy when they got what they wanted? It's so, and I'm guessing a lot of other groups go through the same thing. When they become famous and popular, then it's even harder than when you're not. So that was an interesting thing to think about. So then they managed to get through it, and they kind of found themselves again. And then they made the Love Yourself series of albums, which are all awesome also. And then things sort of changed with the pandemic. And they talk about missing their fans and not being able to go out and see people. It was at that time that they kind of changed their direction and did those 3 English songs. So and I was really curious to see in the book if they talked about it. And they seemed to think that that's what they wanted to do. In my mind, when I was watching it as a fan, I felt like they were kind of compromising their true identity by doing these poppy English songs. But they loved it, I guess. They wanted to connect with more people that way, which they did. And they grew more huge till they started doing, to the point where they were doing stadium tours all around the world. I tried to go to that stadium tour that they talk so much about, the first one, November of 2021, the first one where they finally were able to meet with fans again after almost 2 years. And I couldn't get tickets. It was impossible. But I did get tickets to see them again in April of 2022 when they went to Las Vegas. So I did get to see them then. And it was crazy to see the difference between the Wings tour in 2017 and that huge stadium tour in 2022. It's really fun. And I hope they're happy now. They seem happy now. I mean, right now they're doing solo stuff and they seem like they're really embracing that. So happy for them. Some of their solo stuff's not my favorite, but it's really interesting to see what they're doing and coming up with. The book itself, I would love to know if somebody who doesn't know anything about BTS reads this book and what they think of it. Because all throughout it, we've got these QR codes for linking to the video that's being mentioned, whether it's the music video or an interview or a live stage performance or a vlog that they've done, or a show or whatever. There's those codes are like all throughout. And then also we have their concept photo for every album, the color concept photo for every album that they've done. And then there's a page for every album, the songs in every album. Here's the Wings one that I told you I was very into in 2016. And we reacted to all of these intro videos. Yeah, it's crazy. It was crazy, so much fun. Anyway, there's a page for every album and all the songs. And this book goes into a lot of detail about what was behind all the songs and the meaning behind them and what inspired them and what they were thinking when they wrote it. So it's like somebody, whoever was in charge of making this book happen, sat them down and interviewed them about this whole journey. And then they took their quotes, little snippets of it, and that's what's throughout it. So that we've got our narrator that's talking about the specifics of what's going on. We have their thoughts throughout. So intermingled with everything. And then sometimes they'll pull out a quote that they really like, and there's a lot of quote pages like this. So it's a beautiful book. It's very heavy and nice and good, awesome quality. And it takes you through every era that BTS has gone through. And there's a really cool chronology in the back too of all the things that are talked about, all of the awards and concerts and albums and everything. It was fun to read, having lived part of this and been a fan during their crazy heyday, and having experienced some of this in person. Yes, it was really fun to read. I did feel a little a little lack of emotion. Like the narrator parts of it felt a little dry, a little stilted, a little stiff, quite repetitive. And I did enjoy their thoughts that, like I said, were intermingled in between everything, although sometimes I didn't understand what they were trying to say, and I would have to read it over a little bit. Probably a lot was lost in translation. It's probably really hard to put down in English what they've said in Korean and make it make as good of sense. So I'm still expecting down the road, when they're completely done with all this, Namjoon especially, aka RM, I think he needs to write a book that's a true tell-all about everything that happened to them, with a little bit more emotional to it. You know what I mean? I still expect that down the road. Namjoon, you've got to do it. I hope I'm still around when that's happening. That was my only disappointment in it, is that I just kind of felt like it was just a little surfacey, and it only touched on, like, you know, the events of the thing. It did talk a little bit about their struggles and stress, but it just was a little surfacey. And so I really wish we could have gotten more about that and really had them tell their story completely and totally, fully. Does that make sense? But despite that, it was really great. It was really fun to experience the whole 10 years. And from the beginning, when they were nobodies, to now when they are pretty much the hugest superstars that are out there. I would love to know if there's any fans out there that have read it and what you thought of it. I would also love to know if there's anybody that's picked this up and read it that has no idea about BTS. And if you read this and go through and look up every one of these links, what a journey that would be. What a craziness. And I don't think you could come to the end of it without loving them. So I would love to know if somebody has done that. Would that be cool? I didn't look up any of the links because I pretty much watched them when they were dropping, except for the old stuff. And that stuff I caught up on when I jumped into BTS. I must say, I love their old stuff. All that stuff that they kind of got bad feedback on in the beginning. But those songs are my favorites. Definitely my favorites. And then, of course, the era when I was falling in love with them, their Wings era mostly. That's my report on the BTS book. If you're at all curious, I really recommend it. It's really awesome. And if you do not know what I'm talking about, you have no idea what K-pop is or what BTS is, you should look them up. They are really awesome. Okay, that's the end of my mix-up of K-pop and books. So I don't know how to end this. Happy reading for the readers, and let's be friends and K-pop together for the K-popers. Till next time, bye.